memory itself. In the heart of this sacred wood stood a fortress of stone and shadow, where the Alpha Lord ruled with an iron fist wrapped in velvet darkness. His name was whispered in fear and reverence, Kale, the cursed one, the warrior marked by destiny's cruel hand. Tonight, the air crackled with something more than magic. Tonight, fate would collide with flesh and bone. She appeared like mist made manifest, her skin pale as moonlight itself, hair the color of fresh snow cascading down her back, and waves that seemed to catch and hold the starlight. An albino elf, they called her, though she was so much more. Princess Lyra, the moon mage, keeper of ancient prophecies and bearer of gifts that could heal or destroy with equal measure. She had come to his fortress seeking answers, seeking the truth behind the darkness that threatened both their kingdoms. But Kale had been seeking her for far longer. When their eyes met across the great hall, time itself seemed to pause. His were the color of amber fire, burning with centuries of loneliness and rage. Hers shimmered like liquid silver, holding secrets that could unravel the very fabric of reality. The air between them hummed with electricity, with something primal and undeniable. "You should not have come here," his voice rumbled, deep as thunder rolling across distant mountains. He moved toward her with the fluid grace of a predator, each step deliberate, measured. "This place is not for one such as you, and yet here I stand," she replied, her voice soft but unwavering. "I did not come seeking your permission, Lord Kale. I came seeking truth." He laughed then, a sound without humor, and in 3 strides he had crossed the distance between them. His hand shot out, not to harm but to cage, pressing against the cold stone wall beside her head. She gasped, trapped between ancient rock and his towering presence. His other hand rose slowly, trembling slightly as it hovered near her face, drawn to her luminescent skin as a moth to flame. When his fingers finally made contact with her cheek, they both felt it, a burning sensation that was neither pain nor pleasure, but something transcendent. Divine fire meeting celestial ice. His touch seared through every barrier she had built around her heart, and her cool skin sent shockwaves of something he had forgotten through his entire being. Hope. "You feel it," he whispered, his face now inches from hers. "This is not coincidence. This is not chance. We are bound, you and I, by forces older than the gods themselves." Lyra's breath came in shallow waves. She had seen this moment in her visions, had tried to avoid it, to change it. But destiny, it seemed, would not be denied. "I know what you are," she said quietly. "I know what you did. The blood on your hands, the curse on your soul. I know why they call you the damned." His jaw clenched, pain flashing across his features. "Then you know why you should run. Why you should never have come within 100 miles of this place. And yet," she raised her hand, placing it against his chest, where his heart beat with surprising vulnerability, "I see something they do not. I see the man beneath the monster, the soul beneath the curse." For 300 years, Kale had been alone. 300 years since the witch's curse had twisted his nature, making him something between man and beast, giving him power but taking his peace. 300 years since he had felt anything but rage and regret. But now, with this ethereal creature standing before him, her touch cooling the fire that always burned beneath his skin, he felt something crack open inside his chest. "You do not know what you're saying," he growled, but he did not move away, could not move away. "I know exactly what I'm saying." Her silver eyes held his, unflinching. "I am the moon mage, Kale. I have walked through visions of past and future. I have seen your beginning, and I have seen ... double quotes." She paused, emotion flickering across her face. "I have seen what we could become." If this moment touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. It helps us bring more stories like this one. The days that followed were a dance of light and shadow, of resistance and surrender. Kale tried to maintain distance to protect her from himself. But Lyra was no fragile flower. She was a force of nature wrapped in silken skin. She challenged him at every turn, her magic pushing against his darkness, her wisdom cutting through his carefully constructed walls. They would meet in the tower library at midnight, ostensibly to research the ancient texts that might hold clues to breaking his curse. But research would give way to conversation, conversation to confession, confession to a connection that terrified them both. "Tell me about before," she asked one night, moonlight streaming through the arched windows, painting them both in shades of silver and shadow. "Before the curse. Before you became what they fear." Kale was silent for a long moment, his fingers tracing the spine of an ancient tone. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw with memory. "I was a fool. A proud, arrogant fool who believed power was everything. I refused to help a woman in need, an old beggar who asked for shelter from a storm. I mocked her, turned her away from my gates." He laughed bitterly. "She was no beggar. She was a sorceress of the old ways, and my cruelty earned me this prison of flesh and fury." Lyra moved closer, her presence a balm to his ancient wounds. "You were young. You were taught that strength meant hardness. But you have changed, Kale. I see it in every action, every choice you make now. Have I?" He turned to face her, and in his eyes she saw the war that raged constantly within him. "Or am I simply better at hiding the beast?" "You are both," she said simply, reaching up to cup his face in her hands. "And I love you for all of it. The man and the monster. The darkness and the light struggling within you." The words hung in the air between them, crystallizing into truth that could not be unspoken. Kale's breath caught, his hands coming up to grasp her wrists, not to push her away, but to hold her there, to anchor himself to this moment. "You cannot love me," he whispered hoarsely. "I will only bring you pain." Too late, she smiled through tears that sparkled like diamonds on her porcelain cheeks. "I already do." Their kiss was inevitable, a collision of souls that had been circling each other for lifetimes. His touch still burned, her coolness still soothed, and together they created something entirely new, a balance, a harmony that neither had known was possible. In that tower, beneath the watchful gaze of the moon, they became something more than alpha and mage, more than cursed warrior and prophetic princess. They became hope incarnate. But happiness, as they both knew too well, was a fragile thing. The betrayal came from the shadows, as all true betrayals do. Lord Matthias, Kale's most trusted general, had grown ambitious. He had made deals with dark forces, promises written in blood and sealed with souls. He wanted the throne, wanted the power that came with ruling the Alpha lands. And he knew that Lyra was the key to everything. "She's made him weak," Matthias whispered to his conspirators in the depths of night. The great Alpha Lord brought low by a pale slip of a girl. "We strike when they are most vulnerable, when his guard is down. We take the girl, use her power to break him completely, and then we rise." The attack came during the Festival of Two Moons, when the sky held twin crescents and magic ran hot as summer wine through the veins of the world. Kale and Lyra had stolen away to the sacred grove, a place where ancient oaks grew in a perfect circle, their branches forming a cathedral of living wood. They danced together beneath the dual moonlight, her laugh like silver bells, his smile genuine for perhaps the first time in centuries. They did not see the arrows until it was too late. Kale moved on instinct, his body shifting partially, becoming the beast he kept so carefully controlled. He took 3 arrows meant for Lyra, his blood dark as night and burning like acid splashing onto the moss-covered ground. But there were too many attackers, too much dark magic woven into their weapons. Lyra's scream echoed through the grove as hands grabbed her, as runes flared to life, binding her power. She fought like a wildcat, her magic exploding outward in waves of silver fire. But the trap had been carefully laid. The bindings held. No! Kale roared, his full transformation taking hold. He became something magnificent and terrible, 8 feet of raw power, fangs and claws and fury given form. He tore through his attackers like paper, but more kept coming, wave after wave. And then Matthias stepped from the shadows, a blade of cursed iron in his hand, the only weapon that could truly harm the Alpha Lord. It ends tonight, old friend, he said with false sympathy. Your time is done. The world belongs to those strong enough to take it, and you have grown soft. The blade struck true, sliding between Kale's ribs with practiced precision. He fell, his transformation reversing as his strength fled with his blood. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was Lyra's face. Tears streaming down her pale cheeks, her mouth forming his name. Tell me in the comments what part of their story moved you the most. Your words mean more than you know. Lyra awoke in chains of cold iron, in a cell deep beneath the earth where no moonlight could reach her. Her power, always drawn from the celestial bodies above, was reduced to embers. But embers, given enough breath, could become infernos. For days, or was it weeks? Time had no meaning in that lightless place she endured. Matthias came to her, trying to break her will, to force her to use her prophetic sight for his own gain. He wanted to know how to fully control Kale's curse, how to take the alpha power for himself. Tell me, he demanded, his voice echoing off stone walls, slick with moisture and despair. Tell me what you see in the future, witch. Tell me how I claim what should be mine. Lyra lifted her head, her silver eyes still bright despite the darkness. I see your end, traitor. I see you consumed by the very power you seek to steal. I see darkness swallowing you whole, and no one left to mourn your passing. His hand struck her face, but she only smiled through the pain. Is that all? Kale hits harder when he's trying to be gentle. Kale is dead. Matthias spat. I put that blade through his heart myself. Your precious Alpha Lord is nothing but food for worms now. But Lyra felt the lie in his words, felt the silver thread that still connected her soul to Kale's. It was weak, frayed almost to breaking, but it persisted. He lived. Somewhere, somehow, he still fought, and so would she. It took every ounce of her remaining power, every drop of will she possessed. But Lyra reached deep within herself to a place even the iron could not touch. She called to the moon, not the one in the sky she could not see, but the one that lived inside her, the celestial force that had chosen her before birth to be its vessel. The chains began to frost over. Ice spread from her wrists, climbing the iron links, making them brittle, and when she pulled, they shattered. Kale woke to agony. The cursed blade had not killed him. Nothing short of decapitation could truly end an alpha. Lord, but it had brought him closer to death than he had been in 3 centuries. He lay in the ruins of the grove, surrounded by the bodies of those who had tried to kill him, his own blood soaking the sacred earth. But he was alive, and as long as he lived, he would find her. The transformation that came over him then was different from before. This was not rage, not the beast breaking free in fury. This was purpose crystallized into physical form. Every fiber of his being aligned toward a single goal. Reach Lyra, save Lyra, protect what he loved, even if it cost him everything. He rose on legs that should not have held him, his wounds closing with agonizing slowness. Around him, the grove itself seemed to respond to his determination. The ancient oaks creaked and groaned, their roots breaking through earth, their branches reaching skyward as if in prayer. Kale threw back his head and howled, a sound that carried across every realm, every dimension. It was a declaration and a promise. He was coming, and nothing in heaven or earth would stand in his way. The 2 forces converged on Matthias's stronghold like twin storms. Lyra, ascending from the depths, her power fully unleashed now, no longer restrained by fear or mercy. And Kale, tearing through the outer defenses, his fury tempered by love into something far more dangerous than simple violence. They met in the great hall, where shadows danced with torchlight and the air hummed with impending violence. Matthias stood ready, surrounded by his dark mages and corrupted warriors, a manic grin splitting his face. How touching, he sneered. The lovers reunited just in time to die together. How very poetic. But Lyra and Kale did not respond with words. They did not need to. Their eyes met across the carnage, and in that glance they spoke volumes. Strategy flowed between them like water, their connection allowing them to move as one entity, two halves of a devastating whole. Lyra's magic exploded outward in waves of silver fire, freezing Matthias's forces in place, creating a path of frost and moonlight. Kale charged down that path, his transformation complete, becoming the perfect synthesis of man and beast, retaining his human intelligence while wielding the strength of his cursed form. The battle was brutal and swift. Matthias, for all his dark power and careful planning, had made one fatal miscalculation. He had thought Kale's love for Lyra made him weak. He had failed to understand that love, true love, the kind that burns like divine fire and soothes like celestial ice, does not weaken, it transforms. When Kale's claws found Matthias's throat, when Lyra's magic sealed his corrupted power away forever, they felt no joy in the victory. Only exhaustion, only relief that the nightmare had ended. In the aftermath, as dawn broke over the blood-stained halls, Kale and Lyra stood together at the highest balcony, his arms wrapped around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. Both bore wounds that would scar, memories that would never fully fade. What do we do now? She asked softly, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of gold and rose. We live, he replied simply. We take each day as it comes. We build something new from the ashes of what was. She turned in his arms, her hands coming up to frame his face. The curse. Kale, when we fought together, when our powers merge, I felt something shift. The binding that holds your curse, it's weakening. His eyes widened. How is that possible? Because curses are born of negative emotion, of anger, pride, cruelty. But love, ... double quotes, she smiled through tears. Love is the antithesis of all that. True love, sacrifice, partnership, these things have power that dark magic cannot withstand. As if in response to her words, Kale felt something release inside his chest. Not completely, not all at once, but a loosening, a sense that the chains that had bound him for 300 years were beginning to rest and fray. Will you stay? He asked, vulnerability raw in his voice. Even if the curse never fully breaks? Even if I remain part monster forever? I told you before, Lyra said, pulling him down until their foreheads touched. I love all of you, every part, every piece. Besides, she grinned mischievously, who else would be crazy enough to handle an alpha lord with anger management issues? His laugh was genuine, full of joy and relief and hope. You are insufferable, and you love me for it. I do. God's help me, I do. Their kiss was softer this time, less desperate, more certain, a promise rather than a plea. Around them, the fortress began to come alive with the sounds of rebuilding, of healing, of moving forward. Those who had followed Matthias out of fear began to emerge, seeking forgiveness, seeking a new way. And Kale, with Lyra at his side, showed them mercy, showed them that strength did not require cruelty, that power could be tempered with compassion. Together, they began to reshape not just the fortress, but the very idea of what it meant to lead. If you believe love can conquer destiny, tap that like button and join our family beneath the moonlight. Months passed like water through cupped hands precious and swift. The fortress became a home, the stronghold a sanctuary. Lyra established a library of healing magic, teaching others to harness the gentler aspects of power. Kale opened his borders, forming alliances built on mutual respect rather than fear. And every night, without fail, they would climb to their tower. There, beneath the watchful gaze of the moon that had witnessed their first meeting, they would hold each other and speak of dreams for tomorrow. "I had a vision last night," Lyra murmured one evening, her head resting on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "And?" Kale's fingers traced lazy patterns on her shoulder. "I saw us, centuries from now. Still together, still fighting, still loving, still ... us." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "Just centuries?" "I was hoping for at least a few millennia." She laughed, the sound like music. "Greedy, when it comes to you?" "Always." On the night of the full moon, 1 full year since Lyra had first walked into his fortress and turned his world inside out, something miraculous occurred. They stood in their usual place, wrapped in each other's arms, when Lyra gasped, "Kale, look." In the moonlight, his skin had begun to glow. Not with the fire of his curse, but with something softer, something pure. The dark marks that had covered his arms, physical manifestations of his binding, were fading, dissolving like morning mist beneath the sun. "It's happening," Lyra breathed. "The curse is breaking." Kale felt tears, something he had not shed in 300 years, sliding down his face. "How do you know?" "Because I see you." She turned to face him fully, her hands cupping his face. "Not the Alpha Lord, not the cursed warrior, just ... you, just Kale, the man who loves so fiercely he shattered his own darkness. The man who proved that redemption is always possible. The transformation was not instantaneous. The curse had held him for too long, had roots that went too deep to be pulled free in a single moment. But with each day, with each sunrise they witnessed together, with each act of kindness he showed his people, the binding loosened further. And through it all, Lyra remained. His anchor, his light, his reason for fighting through every moment of pain the unbinding brought. When the beast roared inside him, threatening to consume what remained of his humanity, her cool touch would ground him. When despair whispered that he would never be free, her voice would remind him how far he had already come. "You are not your worst moment," she would say, over and over until he believed it. "You are every choice you make after it. You are every day you choose love over hate, hope over despair, connection over isolation." 2 years after their first meeting, on another festival night beneath twin moons, Kale stood before his people, no longer a lord ruling through fear, but a leader beloved for his wisdom and strength. Lyra stood beside him, her hand in his, their fingers intertwined. "For 300 years, he addressed the crowd, his voice carrying across the courtyard, "I believed I was a monster wearing a man's face. I believed that my curse defined me, that I was nothing more than the sum of my worst mistakes. I was wrong." He turned to Lyra, his eyes holding nothing but love and gratitude. "This woman taught me that we are all broken. We all carry scars, visible or not. But those scars, those broken places, they do not make us less. They make us capable of understanding others who hurt. They make us capable of compassion we could never have known otherwise." Lyra smiled, tears sparkling on her cheeks. "And this man taught me that prophecy is not prison, that knowing what might be does not mean being powerless to shape it. He taught me that the future is written in sand, not stone, and that love is the tide that can wash away even the darkest destiny." Together they spoke the vow they had written: "We are light and shadow, ice and fire, curse and blessing, and together we are whole." The crowd erupted in celebration, But Kale and Lyra only had eyes for each other. As the festivities swirled around them, as music filled the air and joy replaced the fear that had reigned for so long, they simply stood together, foreheads touching, breathing the same air. "Thank you," Kale whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me, for not running when you should have, for believing I could be more than what I was." "Thank you," she echoed, "for letting me in, for fighting your darkness so we could have this light, for proving that even the most broken soul can heal if given love and time. The curse never fully broke, not completely. Kale would always carry a shadow of what he had been, would always possess strength beyond mortal men, would always have moments where the beast pressed close to the surface. But he learned to live with it, to accept it as part of his journey rather than the entirety of his identity. And Lyra, the moon mage who had walked through visions of 1,000 futures, chose to remain in this present, in this moment, with this man. She established her school of healing magic, taught generations of young mages that power without compassion was worthless, that strength was found in vulnerability, that the greatest magic was simply loving someone completely, flaws and all. Years became decades, decades became centuries. The world changed around them. Kingdoms rose and fell, but Kale and Lyra endured. Not because they were perfect, they fought, they struggled, they had moments of doubt and fear, but because they had learned the greatest secret: love is not the absence of difficulty. Love is choosing each other every single day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. They became legend. Stories were told of the Alpha Lord and the Moon Mage, of how love had broken a curse that magic could not. Poets wrote verses about the way his touch burned like divine fire, about her skin luminescent as starlight. Artists painted them locked in eternal embrace, shadow and light forever intertwined. But the real story, the true story, was simpler and more profound than any legend. It was the story of two broken people who found each other in the darkness and chose to build something beautiful from their shared scars. It was the story of redemption earned not through grand gestures, but through daily choices. It was the story of love not as magic or miracle, but as work and commitment and showing up again and again, no matter what. On quiet nights, when the moon hung full and bright, they would still climb to their tower. Gray might have touched his temples, fine lines might have appeared at the corners of her eyes, but when they looked at each other, they saw only what they had always seen: home. "Do you ever regret it?" Kale asked one such night, his voice soft. "Choosing this life? Choosing me? You could have had anyone, been anywhere. You were a princess, a mage of unparalleled power." Lyra laughed, the sound still as beautiful as the first time he had heard it. "Regret you? Regret us?" "Never. Not for a single moment. You want to know what I regret?" "What?" "That I wasted even one day being afraid of what we could become. That I hesitated, even briefly, before walking into that fortress. Because every moment with you, Kale, every fight, every tear, every laugh, every quiet sunrise, all of it has been worth more than any throne, any power, any destiny I might have claimed alone." He pulled her close, breathing in the scent of moonflowers that always seemed to cling to her hair. "I love you. I will love you until the stars burn out and the world goes dark. And even then, even in that final darkness, I will find you." "I know," she smiled against his chest. "I've seen it." And so they stood as they had stood 1,000 times before and would stand 1,000 times more. Two souls who had been alone, who had been lost, who had been convinced they were beyond saving. Two souls who had found each other against impossible odds and built not just a love, but a legacy. In the fortress below, lights flickered to life as evening fell. The home they had built together, the family they had chosen, the future they had shaped through sheer will and endless love. It was not perfect. It would never be perfect. but it was theirs, and that made it sacred. The moon rose higher, casting its silver benediction over the world. And beneath its light, an Alpha Lord held a moon mage in his arms and felt, for perhaps the millionth time, the truth that had saved them both. Love is not the absence of darkness. Love is the choice to light a candle and hold it steady, even when the wind howls and threatens to extinguish the flame. Love is showing up with your broken pieces and saying, "Here, this is all I have, but it's yours." Love is taking someone else's broken pieces and saying, "These are beautiful. These are precious. These are worthy of protecting." Love is divine fire meeting celestial ice and creating something entirely new, not fire, not ice, but the space between where life can flourish. Love is everything. Thank you for walking this journey beneath the moonlight with us. If this story touched something within your soul, if you felt the fire and ice of their love, remember that you carry that same power within you. The power to change, to grow, to love despite the odds. The power to be both shadow and light, broken and beautiful, cursed and blessed. Subscribe to witness more tales where love conquers destiny, where hope rises from ashes, where two souls lost in darkness find each other and create light. Your presence here, your willingness to believe in the power of love and redemption, makes these stories possible. Until we meet again beneath the next moon, remember, you are not defined by your darkest moment. You are defined by what you choose to do next. And love, real, true, imperfect, daily chosen love is always worth fighting for. The moon awaits our next story. Will you join us?